What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Big night on DraftKings tonight. Maybe FanDuel has more than a Happy Meal to first. I'm not sure. Who knows? I haven't logged in there since the French Revolution of 1812. I don't even know if that's when the French revolutionized, but that's when the last time I logged in on. 11-game slate here. 555 on DraftKings, 200K to first. That is the biggest prize pool we've seen. 100K to second. If you are in there tonight, good luck. You have a ticket. I have a ticket. I'm sure our boss Cheesesteak Jake will hop in there. But yeah, looking forward to breaking it down. 4 games last night. I fell asleep in the middle of all the games. You needed Olmark. He was ridiculous. But here to break it down with me. In his, I forgot the guy's name. He's not on the team yet. He's coming from Russia. Demigod jersey. Yeah. So Cliffy, what's going on?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I only caught like half of the first period of the Buffalo-Edmonton game. Edmonton, I stacked the Oilers. Edmonton hit the post 3 times, and I was like, well, my night's done. Well, so yeah, I knew I wasn't getting there that last night. Detroit Ottawa was a pretty good game, and it was a pretty good game because of Linus Ullmark. I looked it up. It was his first regular season regulation game with at least 45 saves in his career, and it's the second most saves he's made in a regular season game in his career. The other one was an overtime game when he had like 53 saves or something like that. So just like literally like one of the best games he'll ever play. So tough break if you're a Detroit Red Wings fan. But yeah, you needed Ullmark last night. Tage Thompson had a 2-goal game. Nathan McKinnon, 2 assists and 6 shots, I think, including a point called back early on an earlier goal that Martin Necas had scored. So there were points to be had for some big guys, but there was a lot of letdowns last night considering how much firepower there was. But 11 games on the slate here tonight. Colorado is playing. Edmonton is not. Toronto is not. Tampa Bay is in a pretty tough spot. So feels like a pretty wide open slate in that sense.
Yeah. And we have a late night hammer of Nashville Sharks. How bad are the Predators that they're only minus 166 against the Sharks team? But we'll get to that game when we get there. Big GPPs, as I said, hopefully more of 1812 was you. Yeah. Listen, you history major.
Yeah, that was when the territory soon to be known as Canada burned down the White House, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and now you guys are getting there, man. We're not going there. But anyway, let's get into the slate before we do 51st state. And sorry, you just can't help and laugh about what's going on sometimes. But let's get into this slate before we do. Again, if you do want to join the DFS side of things, click that Stochastic link. We still have a month, 5 weeks of the NHL regular season, couple good weeks of playoff hockey. MLB is coming very soon. Again, I'll let you guys know when we have a promo code for you. We'll get you better than 15% off. But if you do want to join for MMA, NBA, PGA, stuff like that, you can use promo code Stochastic15. That'll get you 15% off any subscription. If you want to go on to the betting sides of things, click that Odds Shopper link. You can get a 7-day free trial. Portfolio EV. So let's get into it. Florida Panthers with a 3.2 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 2.3 total. Marchand was at practice this morning with Verhaeghe and Barkov. He's obviously not going to be playing tonight. They said he'll be lucky to be back before the end of the season, which means he'll be ready to go for game 1 of their playoff series, not before. So Florida's going Reinhart, Verhaeghe, Barkov, Bennett, Samoskevich, Rodriguez, Lundell, Lusterine, and Bakquist. Boston going Pasternak, Geeky, Zaka, Elias Lindholm, Marat, Nutsdinov, Jakub Lauko, and then Casey Middlestat, Cole Koepke, Vinny Lettieri. That is a team. Kind of. Yeah. Just before we get into Wally Balls, he shipped 25K the other night, first and second place. He ran a contest on his Twitter for a month of core all access. Clayton won, so shout out to Wally Balls. Clayton will enjoy that. He is one of the guys who will definitely take advantage of that. But yeah, shout out Wally Balls. But yeah, start on the Boston side. Like Boston traded basically anything that they could at the deadline. They finally waved the white flag. It's a long time coming. They kind of overachieved after Krejci and Bergeron retired. They have a 2.3 total, and the Pastrnak Geeky Zaka line is 18,800 with 7.3% projected ownership going into the Barkov line. Like, I'm not exactly sure why. That seems like an easy fade for me, unless I'm completely missing something, which I don't think I am, outside of them being fully correlated. Florida takes a fair share of penalties, but like, if you want to do a one-off Pastrnak, like, cool. He is one of the highest projected players on the slate, I think behind McKinnon and Philip Forsberg. But again, 2.3 total going into Barkov at 18,800 and getting ownership seems like an easy fade to me. That pretty much takes me out on Boston. I'm not interested in the second or third lines here. This is a Florida game for me. Now, Florida one is a bit tough here. They're 20,100, 14.8% top two stack. Jake said he's running ownership right now. In our last run, it was 11%. Here's the problem that I'm kind of running into. They're not creating a ton at 5-on-5. They're not fully correlated. And in that same price range, you have Winnipeg 1 for $100 more against the Rangers. You have Colorado 1 for $1,800 more against the Wild. You have Washington for $1,200 more in a good matchup. You have Nashville under 20K. You have Vegas under 20K. You know what I mean? It's just kind of hard to prioritize them, especially when they're coming in with the most ownership in that range. Maybe the next run changes things, and I'll update after I kick it to Cliffy, because, you know, if I try to do it now, I'll become like 28-bit pixels. But, you know, if they were fully correlated, maybe, but, you know, their expected goals are creeping up, but it's a 280-minute sample, 2.9 expected goals. It was down around 2.7. It is creeping up. You know, Boston's still missing McAvoy. Swayman still has a save percentage under 9. So, like, I get it. They're fine. But if they're coming in with the most ownership in that top range in single entry, I think I'm going to be looking elsewhere if I spend up. Again, perfectly fine. I'm more interested in Florida 2 here. Bennett, Samoskevich, Rodriguez at 13.7. They're coming in at 10.5% projected, but you still get two guys on the top power play unit in Samoskevich and Bennett. They have been pretty good in the 100-minute sample, and they're going to get the depth of Boston, which is an oxymoron. You know, like, I can't imagine Casey Middlestad, Vinny Lettieri, Cole Koepke being a decent defensive line. Like, Elias Lindholm has been decent defensively all season. That line could be decent, so maybe they see them at some points. But again, like, McAvoy's still out. Joki Harju, who either got traded or claimed by the Bruins, is on the top pair now. So I do like Florida 2 here at 13.7. I think they're a filler that I'd be interested in. Florida 1, perfectly fine in any format. For me personally, I just I'm going to look elsewhere if I'm spending up.
I mean, I'm out on Boston.
Oh, yeah.
No chance. Not an 11-game slate. If I was running up 100 lineups, I think then I start considering them in a single entry or 3 max, like, just out. I do have interest in the Florida side. Like, listen, man, Boston sucks. Like, you know, like, this isn't the 22-23 Boston Bruins. It's not even the 23-24 Boston Bruins. This team is bad. If you look, you know, basically just over their last, if you look at basically what they've done since January 1st, which gives us, you know, about a quarter of the season of a sample, Boston's been pretty bad defensively, 26th by goals against, 29th by expected goals against at all strengths. That is horrific. This is a bad team. And while I wouldn't be inclined to pay $20,100 for Florida 1, I would be inclined to pay $17,600 for Reinhart, Barkov, Samoskevich, right? Or around $19K for Barkov, Reinhart, Sam Bennett. Like, those guys all play on the power play together. You can take off Verhaeghe. I know Verhaeghe, he played like 19 minutes or something in the last game, but the 2 games before that, without top power play time, he played like 13, 14 minutes. Like, I even if Verhaeghe plays like 15, 16 minutes here, he's overpriced at 6,600. So I would way rather play Samoskevich or Bennett or something like that. I do kind of worry about the Florida power play just because you're taking out Ekblad, and the power play have been really good with Ekblad running it. I don't know what it's going to be like with Seth Jones. Now, I assume they'll still be fine, but we have to assume because we haven't seen it yet. There's not even a small sample to work off of. So I assume they'll still be okay. And, Boston has been taking a lot of penalties over the last 5 weeks of action. So 7 weeks, including the 4 nations. Second most time shorthanded per game. If you go all the way back to January 1st, 8th most time shorthanded per game. They've been taking a lot of penalties. Florida's been drawing a lot of power plays. Again, over the last 5 weeks, second most power play opportunities per game for the Florida Panthers. If you go back to January 1st, it's 6th most. So they might get a lot of power play opportunities against a penalty kill that has struggled pretty much all season. And this team just got worse over the last week. And it was a team that was a non-playoff team to begin with. So I don't think I would just straight stack Florida 1, but Barkov, Reinhart, Samoskevich, Barkov, Reinhart, Sam Bennett, like those types of things, I do have a lot of interest in. I think this is a really good matchup for Florida. The ownership is somewhat high. Bennett, Barkov, Reinhart, all over 12%. Seth Jones at 12%. Samoskevich is single digits. But man, like if I can get one of those stacks, like 10% ownership, 12% ownership on a 11 game slate, I'm not that worried about it. So I really do like Florida 1 here. I like the Florida power play guys specifically. I don't think you necessarily have to play Verhaeghe, but I am definitely out on Boston.
Yeah. I do like the idea of a Panthers power play stack, especially with the second line guys and adding in a Reinhart or Barkov just because they're cheaper. But that's just me. Our Columbus Blue Jackets, 2.7 total, heading into Newark, New Jersey. Lots of opinions on Newark, New Jersey. The Devils have a 3.3 total. Devils going Meyer, Hischier, Nason, Mercer, Palat, Tatar, Bratt, Halla, Glass. Columbus going Marchenko, Fantilli, Voronkov, Kent Johnson, Boone Jenner, Olivier, and then Chinnikov, Danforth, Luke Cunnin. A lot of ownership here on New Jersey 1. Meyer, Hischier, Nason, 17,300, 10.2% top 2 stack, 14.2% projected ownership. Now, this is a pretty good matchup. This line has been really good this season. They're not fully correlated, which kind of sucks. Nason's on the second unit. The top unit is Hischier, Meyer, Bratt,
Dawson
Mercer, and Luke Hughes. I wonder at some point if Nason, comes back and is the net front again. But this team unconditionally loves Dawson Mercer, no matter who the coach is. So maybe not. I don't mind them at 17-3. The ownership is a bit high. They have been really, really good together this season. They're going to get, good 5-on-5 matchups. The penalty kill's bad for Columbus. So in the mid-range, in that 16 to 18K range, they're one of the lines that I am considering. It's just, there's a lot of ownership there again. And you have lines like, Montreal 1 we'll get to. There's Nashville we'll talk about, LA, Minnesota, Flyers, even the Blue Jackets on the other side with no ownership. There's some Sharks lines in there. So I do really like the matchup because, again, like Columbus had a good stretch there because Merzlikins and Tarasov were playing out of their minds. So I think it was more goalie play than them getting better defensively. Obviously, them getting Boone Jenner back helped a little bit there, but still. So I'm good with NJ1 here. Like, Bratt, Holla, Cody Glass is getting almost 10% because they're 11,800. Bratt is on the top power play unit. I don't know, man. A 10% line with Eric Holla and Cody Glass. I don't know. If you want to do it as a filler, fine. Mercer as a one-off because he's on the power play, sure. The Columbus side is interesting to me from the fact that, the Devils obviously have been good defensively. They are missing Dougie Hamilton, though. They are missing Jonas Siegenthaler. They do have Markstrom and net, and generally they have a good penalty kill. But, these lines without Hughes, and once you get past the Nico Hischier matchup, really don't incite much fear. I don't know about the top line of Marchenko, Fantilli, Voronkov at 17.7. They are coming in with under 1%, but they have a third of the top stack of the Devils' top line. The second line is a little bit interesting to me. Jenner, Johnson, and Olivier. They've played decent. Johnson and Olivier have played a bunch together this season. They've been okay. For $13K, I don't mind taking a stab on that line. That's more of an MME type deal, or throwing them in a basket with, the filler lines that fit with the really expensive stuff here tonight. I'm not super high on Columbus. I'm not super low on Columbus. They're going to get into my lineup if it's convenient. You know what I mean? But of all the lines in this game, I prefer the Nico Hischier line. It's just a matter if you want to play them at that ownership.
One of my issues with New Jersey is that the power play is worse without Jack Hughes. Obviously, I looked back to last season. The top power play, they generate 30% more shots with Jack Hughes on the ice for the top power play unit than without him. I think that kind of goes without saying. It's a guy that they can't replace. So while Columbus doesn't really have that great of a penalty kill, it's like, if the power play for New Jersey's a lot worse, how good of a matchup for them actually is it? New Jersey's not really drawing a ton of power plays either. They're at 2.5 per game over the last 6 weeks. Like, that's outside the top 20 of the league. It's really not. Going back to Christmas or January 1st, it's about the same. It's below average. Like, so they're not, it's not a team where I'd be like, yeah, you're getting 3 power play opportunities from them tonight. It's like maybe, there's a decent chance, but it's not something I'd rely on. And, for as much as that New Jersey top line has been generating, they haven't been scoring. Hischier and Meyer have played over 600 minutes together this season. They're at 2.1 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Now, it is shooting percentage driven. They're shooting 6.6%. So obviously, if they're shooting 9.5%, which isn't even that high, this would be a pretty good 5-on-5 scoring line, but they haven't done it yet. And it's for me, it's kind of notable because there has been scoring issues on this team basically all season outside of the power play. And that was after bringing in a new coach who completely overhauled how they approach their offense. Like, this is a forechecking team now, not a speed counterattack off the rush team like they were the last couple of years. So if you're asking me, do I want to play a 5-on-5 line that's been scoring basically at a third line rate this entire season, coming in at 14% ownership, it's like, they're okay. Maybe. I'm not super excited about doing it. I honestly think I would probably go look somewhere else. So, I'm fine. I'm fine if people want to play New Jersey. They do have a 10% top 2 stack here tonight. They're one of 8 lines that have at least a 10% top 2 stack probability. So I have no issue playing them. Obviously, it's 17,300. It's a very reasonable price. I was doing point per dollar projections on this slate. This New Jersey top line's in the top 5. So everything points to them being a good line, good projection, decent matchup, all that. It's just they haven't scored this year, man. And now the power play is not what it was with Jack Hughes there. I don't know, man. I think I'm just kind of out on New Jersey. Again, people want to play them, no issue. I don't think it's just my jam. I honestly think I'd be more interested in playing Columbus here. Whatever we want to say about this Columbus top line, they've actually been scoring. 3.1 expected goals per 60 minutes since the Four Nations break. 4.6 actual goals. Now, obviously, that's driven by a high shooting percentage. But even going back to when they were put together right after Sean Monahan got injured, this has been a really good offensive line of 5-on-5. 3.1 expected goals, 3.9 actual goals per 60 minutes. They're perfectly correlated on the power play. 17,700 is a very reasonable price. And the other thing is like New Jersey has typically had an excellent penalty kill this season. It's gotten worse without Jonas Siegenthaler. Not bad, but closer to like a fringe top 10 penalty kill rather than top 2, top 3 as it had been for most of the year. So I think it's not a good power play matchup, but it's better than what it was. Considering they're relatively the same price and I can get Columbus 1 at almost no ownership. Again, as you mentioned, 0.6% ownership here tonight. I think I'm interested in Columbus 1. And I think Columbus 2 is in play as well at 13,000 even. Kent Johnson, Boone Jenner, 68 shot attempts, 4.2 expected goals since Jenner was reinserted back in the lineup. They've been a good secondary line. I think I'm just more interested in the Columbus side here than I am in New Jersey.
Yeah, and Fantilli's coming off a hat trick against the Rangers, which, really isn't saying too much at this point, but that is his second of his career. Second of this year. Let's get to a very unserious game. Ottawa Senators with a 2.8 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.7. Does this game suck? This game sucks. Ottawa going Kachuk, Stützle, Giroux, Batherson, Cousins, Perron, Pinto, Grieg, Amadio. Obviously, Ottawa won 2-1 yesterday. They were a second away from going to overtime. It is probably going to be Anton Forsberg in net now. For the Flyers, they're going Tippett, Michkov, Couturier, Konechny, Paling, Ali Lixell, Forrester, Cates, Brink, and Ivan Fedotov in net. He is not a serious NHL goalie. He has an .885 save percentage on the year. Every time I see the Senators on the slate, I can't help but think of that mashup meme of Starship Troopers and I think you should leave guy. I did my part. And you get to Ottawa 1, like, I didn't do fucking shit. And they just don't do shit. On the season, 2.37 expected goals per 60. Like, that's not creating anything. Like, Matt Rempe probably creates around the same on his just throwing elbows. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't particularly love spending up 20,800 for Ottawa 1 here. Yes, they're not facing an NHL caliber goalie, but for 20,800, I don't think I can do it. I'm in more on Ottawa 2, Cousins, Batherson, Perron. I think what I would do here is take out Perron. I know he scored yesterday, and then put in Brady Tkachuk. It's $3,800 more, makes it 18-7. It's kind of similar to what you do with Florida because the Flyers just don't have a good penalty kill. The Flyers, they traded their defensive center in Scott Lawton, who doesn't really do much defending, but with this goalie, with this penalty kill, I'm interested in some sort of Ottawa power play stack. I don't really want to pin my night on the Flyers here, but Couturier, Michkov, Tippett at 16.5, coming in with 1.6% projected ownership. A 100-minute sample this year, 3.2 expected goals, 6 actual, so they're shooting like 1.8 million %. But it's not. They're not facing Ullmark. They're going to get middle 6 matchups of the Sens. They played yesterday. I don't know. Like, for that ownership, I don't really mind them. I don't know if I can get to them in single entry. It's just like a mental block clicking in Flyers on an 11-game slate, but they're fully correlated for whatever that means to you. If you want to go to Forrester, Cates, Brink at 12.5, like, that's fine. at 12-5, they're more playable than 15-7, whatever the hell they were a few weeks ago. Again, not super high in this game, but because of prices and ownership, I think you got to consider stuff on both sides, which gives me a headache.
I mean, I'm out on Ottawa. That top line is 20,800. We'll get to Washington later. The Washington top line is $500 more. They're perfectly correlated, and they're coming in at under 4% ownership. It's like if I want to get an expensive, low-owned road line here tonight, there are a couple of them within about $1,000 of this Ottawa top line that are better lines offensively. So I just think that there are pivots to Ottawa 1. You want to play Ottawa 2, like, go ahead. I'm still not a Dylan Cousins believer. Like, he scored the goal last night. Like, good for him. It was a sick pass from Jake Sanderson. Cousins had a wide open net, and he still put it posting in. Like, it was about a quarter of an inch away from going posting out, which would have been absolutely priceless. But I'm still not. And like, Drake Batherson and David Perron have not been good together this season. 55 shot attempts, 1.9 expected goals, 1.9 actual goals per 60. Dylan Cousins ain't turning that ship around. I'm just out on the Sens. Like, Brady Tkachuk is kind of like, the Sens are in that Boston boat for me. It's like, if you want to one-off David Pastrnak, like if you want to one-off Brady Tkachuk, absolutely no issue with that. They'll always have really high projections. They're always solid one-offs to play. As far as stacking goes, like, this is not it for me. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I'm actually more interested in the Flyer side.
Yeah.
I do worry about lines getting broken up. It's been a couple bad games in a row from them since the trade deadline. I could imagine, like, if Ottawa's up 1-0 or 2-0 after the first period, like this lineup just gets nuked. But you're right about going up against Ottawa's middle six. Like, I talked about Batherson and Perron not doing anything offensively. Defensively, 3.3 expected goals against per 60 minutes, 61 shot attempts against. Like, it's not a good defensive second line. So I think Tippett, Mitchkov, Couturier is where I would go. I'm going to be kind of honest here. I think I would be more interested in just some one-offs from the Flyer side. So, like, a one-off Tippett, I think is perfectly fine at 6,200. Mitchkov, 6,100. I think those are perfectly fine. Like, I don't think I'm full stacking the Flyers here, but I do have interest in one-offing some of their guys.
Cliffy just salty the Habs and acquire my man Dylan Cousins. A real hater energy. Oh, yes. Yes. Injected into my veins. Vegas Golden Knights with a 3.7 total heading into Pittsburgh. That arguably really sucks. The Penguins have a 2.7 total. I just have a really bad bias against it's Levi Marilainen for the Sens tonight, by the way, as Quick Party just updated us.
Well, he got called up. I don't think they confirmed that he's starting. But
who knows? Anyway, Pittsburgh going Crosby, Rust, Raquel, Malkin, Tomasino, Connor Dewar, Hayes, Hein, and Bemstrom. I think Novak got hurt. Vegas going Eichel, Stone, Tanner Pearson with an asterisk, Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Saad, and then Barbashev with an asterisk because in the game against the Kings, he got moved up instead of Tanner Pearson. If obviously we won't get lines today because beat writers don't travel with this team on the road, I don't think. But if Barbashev is up instead of Tanner Pearson, that line goes from 19.4 to 19.9. Not a massive difference. Here's the thing, though, right? I've talked about it a bunch. Cliffy's talked about it a bunch with Pittsburgh. You worry about at their price, you worry about their minutes, right? 19.4, they play 19, 20 minutes. That bell, bing bong, rings true for Vegas 1. They're the same price. In their last game, a 6-5 game against the Kings, Jack Eichel, 17 minutes. For, $1,100 or $1,600 cheaper, the second line in arguably better 5-on-5 matchup playing the same minutes. So it's, obviously Eichel is the best player on Vegas. But if you're going to give me Eichel at 17 minutes, with Stone and Pearson or Barbashev, or Hurdle, Dorofeev, and Saad at 17 minutes, I'm probably going to that second line matched up against Malkin, Tomasino, and Connor Dewar. You still get 2 of the 3 guys on the top power play. If you want to go super expensive, you can take off Saad, add in Stone or Eichel, whatever you want to do. The price on Vegas too is a bit more expensive than I really wanted to pay. Hurdle took a big jump because he had the hat trick, but they've played well together this season. 3.5 expected goals for, 5 actual in a 50-minute sample with Saad there. Like, it's a small sample, but they've played well. Pittsburgh's penalty kill isn't good. Dorofeev, a fan favorite. Like, if you want to go to Eichel, Stone, and leave off Pearson and add in a Dorofeev or something, that's fine. I just prefer Hurdle, Dorofeev, Saad. Like, for 17 minutes at 19.4, I'd rather get 19, 20 minutes from Crosby, Rust, Raquel at the same price. Higher top 2 stack, a little bit more ownership, but honestly don't mind Pitt 1 here. With Tanner Pearson there, there's a reason they broke him up. It's because they have not been good defensively all season. Pitt 1 has been good offensively. I don't mind Pittsburgh 1 here. It's just they're kind of priced in a range where it's just like, at that point, I can easily go into the 20,000s and get a better line. You know what I mean? So, like, in a nutshell, I like them. I just don't know if I'm going to get there. Pitt 1, Vegas 2 for me.
Yeah, I was telling you before the show that for the stuff that I was going through of all the first and second lines tonight, Pittsburgh 1 is my best value line of all top 2 lines on any team here that also has positive leverage, which means higher top 2 stack than projected ownership. Now, the recent ownership run changed it a little bit. Florida's right up there with them, but it's basically Florida and Pittsburgh neck and neck for value while having a positive leverage. That kind of scares me because Vegas, they've definitely been giving up some goals lately. If you look at like their shots against, expected goals against, and all that stuff, like, it's still pretty good. Like, it's still fine. So, like, it feels like just a cold stretch for the goaltenders more than anything. I don't really want to rely on like a couple weeks of cold goaltending from Vegas as opposed to like 3 years of cold goaltending from Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? So while I don't have an issue with playing Pittsburgh 1 because they do project well, that's the other thing is like, I think they're top 5 projected. Like, if you just combine the projected fantasy points from each player on each line, they're a top 5 line here tonight. Their top 2 stack, they are one of those 8 teams with a double-digit top 2 stack percentage. They are fine. I'm just not. I hate just relying on them kind of lighting up bad goaltending or like cold goaltending, not necessarily bad goaltending. So I think I'm kind of out on Pittsburgh here. I'm in more on the Vegas side. Here's the thing with Vegas is like the power play's been just as good, if not better, with Noah Hannafin running it since Shea Theodore got hurt at the Four Nations, as it was with Shea Theodore running it. The Pittsburgh penalty kill is definitely not good. I think this is a pretty good spot for the Vegas power play. And the problem with Vegas's power play, generally speaking, this year is not them scoring. It's just getting opportunities. That's gotten better, 21st in the league by power play opportunities per game over the last 5 weeks. Obviously, it's not great, but there was a long stretch of the season where they're like just bottom 3, bottom 5. At least they're getting close to league average. So I would focus on the 4 power play guys. Hurdle, Dorofeev, and Saad have been incredible together since Brandon Saad got to Vegas. It's only a 55-minute sample, 86 shot attempts, 3.4 expected goals per 60 minutes. Brandon Saad's been really, really good in the 11 games since he got to Vegas, regardless of where he's played. I hate leaving him off that line, but I think this is a game where I would focus on the power play guys. So like you said, Eichel, Stone, Hurdle, Eichel, Stone, Dorofeev, Hurdle, Dorofeev, Eichel, something like that is my focus in this game, not so much on the Pittsburgh side.
Yeah. Tampa Bay Lightning with a 2.7 total heading into Carolina. The Hurricanes have a 2.9. Looks like Svechnikov is going to be out. We don't have confirmation, but he wasn't at practice yesterday. They said he was getting further evaluated. If you're getting further evaluated and not skating, there is a good chance you're not going to be recovered for the game the next night. So lines in practice yesterday were Sebastian Aho, Taylor Hall, Jackson Blake, Jarvis Stahl, Martinook, and then Stankoven, Yost, and Kotkaniemi. Tampa going Kucherov, Gensel, Point, Hagel, Cirelli, Bjorkstrand, Paul, Gonclaves, Yanni Gord. Listen, they kept the Stahl, Jarvis, Martinook line together for good reason. They're just really good on both ends of the ice. They're going to be going out against Tampa 1 here. Listen, Tampa 1, 22,600, 1.2% projected ownership. Going up against the Stahl line on an 11-game slate is not something that I'm really interested in single entry or 3 max, so I am out on that line. The more lineups you get to, if you get a little bit of Tampa 1, sure. Like, they're an elite line. They're fully correlated. It's not a great power play spot at all, though, so 22-6 is a tough sell for me. The second line is much more interesting because Bjorkstrand has moved up with Cirelli and Hagel. He's on the top power play, and DK, for some reason, made a min price. So that line is 13,100. They're going to see probably a fair bit of that Aho line, some of that Kotkaniemi line. Listen, Aho and Blake have pretty good numbers in 150 minutes or so this season, but a lot of that is with Jarvis. A lot of that is with Svechnikov. I still think Hall has some stuff left in the tank. He's a pretty good playmaker. I just don't know what he brings on the defensive end. I think that kind of favors Cirelli, Hagel, Bjorkstrand. They're a line at 13-1 that I'm throwing into the basket, and it's going to be near the top of the basket of lines that I like for filler lines with the expensive stuff. Bjorkstrand min price top power play. Again, not a good power play spot, but min price top power play. He hits the score sheet with 3 shots on goal and a block, and you're fine. So I do like Tampa 2 here. On the Carolina side, like Aho and Blake have had pretty good numbers this season. Like I said, Hall still has stuff in the tank left offensively. You get Aho and Hall together on the top power unit. I don't mind them at 15-5. Neither does Bacon. But I think the line that I'd be looking to is Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook at 14-2. They're going up against the Kucherov line. That line got broken up earlier in the year because they weren't good defensively. 3.1 expected goals for Carolina 3. So it would be Tampa 2 and Carolina 3 for me.
Yeah, I'll start on the Tampa side, just out on Tampa 1, going up against Stahl in a bad power play matchup. Just not for me. Tampa 2 is kind of interesting. Like, I was looking at Cirelli and Hagel's minutes without Zemgus Girgensons or Nikita Kucherov, kind of like the two extremes of offensive players on this team that have played on that line. Without Girgensons or Kucherov, 485 minutes, 3.2 expected goals, 3.1 actual goals. Like, they've been really, really good offensively, just with a really wide melange of players, even outside of Kucherov and Girgensons. And I think Oliver Bjorkstrand is going to work out well there. Like, I wrote about him in my newsletter this morning. One thing Bjorkstrand does offensively is be a versatile player. Like, there are players that play primarily off the rush for their offense, or players that play primarily off the forecheck for their offense. He can do both and at a pretty high rate. And that is something that the second line, that Cirelli and Hagel, also do well. And the fact that Bjorkstrand's priced at 2,500, like second line top power play. Like, I know it's a bad power play matchup, but it's still second line top power play for 2,500. Like, at the very least, he's in range for a punt. But I do have some interest in that Tampa second line just because he's mispriced. And, Hagel and Cirelli are still getting like pretty good minutes. Like, Cirelli at like 19 minutes, Hagel at like 21 minutes. Like, that's a lot of ice time. And it's not like the Carolina goaltending has been very good this season. So I don't mind Tampa 2 as a filler, honestly. On the Carolina side, I think I agree with you on Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook. The Tampa Bay penalty kill has been on a bit of a slide over the last few weeks. They've generally been good this year, though. Carolina power play has certainly struggled. Maybe things will be different with Stankoven there as opposed to Rantanen. But even before Brandon got there, they hit kind of a little bit of a downturn. Tampa Bay's not taking many penalties either. Tampa Bay's at 2.1 times shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. That's the 5th lowest rate in the league. If you want to go back even further, going back to January 1st, the 6th lowest rate in the league. Like, they just don't take penalties. So the power play is not any better, and they only get 1 or 2 chances. Like, it's just not a good matchup. So I think that's why I'm focusing on the 5-on-5 matchups. So for me, that's Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook at 14,200. Going to be kind of honest, though. At 14,200, like, I think they're fine, but, you know, you can go to that Tampa Bay second line for $1,000 less. Like, yes, they're coming in with more ownership, but 5% ownership I think is fine. So I think while that's Stahl, Jarvis, Martinook, perfectly fine. They've been dominant defensively, territorially this season. I think Tampa 2 actually might be my favorite line in this game.
Agreed. I don't know why I said that. And then just paused. But Colorado Avalanche with a 3.1 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 2.5. Colorado obviously played last night. They beat the Hawks 3-0. They're going to run back McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen, Nelson, Nichushkin, Drouin, Coyle, Colton, Kiviranta. Minnesota going Boldy, Rossi, Hinostroza, Zuccarello, Gaudreau, Johansson, Hartman, Nyquist, Foligno. Colorado is priced down to 21,900, and they're coming in with a 14.9% top 2 stack, 4.7% projected ownership. It is still highest top 2 percentage on it. They are the expensive line behind Tampa 1. Again, this is Minnesota obviously is a much better team than the Blackhawks, and they're a bit better defensively, obviously, but they have so many injuries. Their penalty kill is bad. Listen, McKinnon played 23 minutes last night. It doesn't matter. Like, if any of these teams are conditioned to play heavy minutes back-to-back, it's the Avs. Bednar's been doing it to McKinnon for years. I do like some sort of Avs power play stack here. Leave off Lehkonen, add in Nichushkin, save $200. Add in Nelson, it adds $1,200. You know that. I think they send out Freddie Gaudreau against top comp. Could be Ryan Hartman. I'm not even sure. Like, they're fine. Both of those lines are fine defensively in a pretty small sample. It's just like, this line is disgustingly good. Still 5 expected goals for, 4.6 actual. Their matchup approved. Don't really care that they're back-to-back on the road. So for me, it would be something at Colorado 1 if you want, obviously, because Lehkonen is a very, very good 5-on-5 player. But for me, I take off Lehkonen, add in Nichushkin or Nelson. Or if you want to go to Colorado 2, leave off Drouin and add in McKinnon, I think you could do that. But I think, you know, in terms of power play importance, I'd go McKinnon 1, Netchus 2, Nichushkin 3. Obviously, I'm not including Makar in those rankings. We get to defensemen at the end. So some sort of Colorado power play stack for me. The Minnesota side is somewhat interesting because Minnesota 1 is fully correlated at 15,400. I just, you know, I don't know. 5.8% projected. They don't have a very high total, 2.5 total. Like, I'm mum on them, but the only reason I'm considering it is because they're fully correlated. They've been playing heavy minutes, and they're 15,400. That's the only reason I see to play them tonight. It's a Colorado game for me.
Yeah, you know, we always say that when you have a line, regardless of what you think about the line, Boldy, Rossi, Hinostroza, they're only 15,400. They're at home. They're perfectly correlated. They're going to play minutes. All those things matter quite a bit. I think that's why you know, despite the 2.5 total and playing a good Colorado team, they still have a 3.8% top 2 stack, which is not bad for a line priced under 16K. So you do have to consider Minnesota no matter what. The thing is like, this is a really bad matchup. Like, don't get me wrong. I know Colorado is on a back-to-back, but I was looking at Colorado's numbers since Mackenzie Blackwood got there. It's been almost 3 months since they traded for Mackenzie Blackwood. In that time, Colorado 5th fewest shots against per minute, 5th fewest expected goals against per minute, 3rd fewest goals against per minute. The only teams giving up fewer goals than Colorado in that stretch are Winnipeg and Florida. Looks like Josh is frozen and about to drop out here shortly. So I get wanting to play Minnesota because you do have a perfectly correlated top line that is at home and relatively cheap. Those things matter. So for that reason, I have no issue playing them. I don't have a ton of particular interest in stacking Minnesota tonight. Like, there are other lines in that price range that we'll get to a little bit later that I might want to play. There's certainly a bunch of lines in that. We'll talk about San Jose in a little bit. We'll talk about Washington in a little bit. I just think there are other lines I'd rather play, and this is a really bad matchup. So I'm kind of just out on Minnesota. As for Colorado, I was looking at Minnesota's numbers since the Kaprizov injury, and obviously, a big problem with Minnesota since Kaprizov got injured is the offense. 2.2 goals per 60 minutes at all strengths since Kaprizov got hurt. It's been 14 games. Obviously, that's not good. There's shot attempts per minute, bottom 10 in the league as well. So this is Minnesota's been in a real tough stretch here. Defensively, things haven't been awful, but not that good. Outside the top 10 by shots against, outside the top 10 by expected goals against, outside the top 10 by goals against, and they have a horrific penalty kill. I would much rather play Colorado than Tampa Bay here tonight. I'd much rather play Colorado than Ottawa here tonight. You mentioned how good that Colorado top line has been, and they have been really good. And you mentioned McKinnon's ice time. It's been 2 games now with Charlie Coyle and Brock Nelson in the lineup, and McKinnon's played 25 and 24 minutes or whatever it is. So I really do have interest in going back to Colorado 1 here. I'm not really worried about the matchups. It's a great power play matchup on top of it. The way I'm building my lineup tonight, I don't think I'm paying up for any line in that price range personally. But again, I would rather play Colorado than Tampa Bay, and I would certainly rather play them than Ottawa here tonight.
Yeah. I haven't decided what I'm doing yet, but I think, obviously the question mark is always, do you spend up for Colorado or not? And after the new run, Colorado is 0.1% behind Florida 1 for top 2 stack percentage. But let's move on. New York Rangers with a 2.6 total heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3.3. Rangers going Jets going Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Ehlers, Perfidi, Nemestikov, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton. Rangers going Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, Zibanejad, Miller, Cooley, Kreider, Carrick, Kaliev. What a team. Listen, Cliffy was kind of ribbing me yesterday. I could just said that they're awful defensively and didn't mention that Fox is out. Obviously, when Fox is in, he kind of band-aids a lot of the ailments. So does Igor Shesterkin. But with Fox out, they're really going to struggle on the blue line. If Igor is slightly off his game, it's going to be a mess. I do really like Winnipeg 1 here. They're 3rd per top 2 stack on the night per the projections at 13.9% top 2 stack, 7.8% projected ownership. The way Winnipeg matches up at home, they send out obviously the Lowry line against top competition. So a lot of the time you're going to see the Scheifele go out line against the 3rd and 4th lines. And I cannot imagine a Carrick, Kreider, Kaliev line or a Rempe, Brzezinski, Othman line putting up any resistance defensively here. The Jets, that top line is, they're decent at 5-on-5, 2.8 expected goals for, 3.3 actual in a large sample. They have a very good power play. The Rangers' penalty kill isn't great. It's just as good as Igor wants it to be. I do really like Winnipeg 1 here. Winnipeg 2 at 13.9. They've been pretty good. It's just, they're going to go up against that Trocheck line a fair bit. Like that line hasn't been great defensively. It's just I don't know if I want to spend 13-9 for that line when you have Tampa 2 sitting there at 13-1. The third line is a little bit interesting if you're power play stacking the Avs, you're power play stacking Tampa, doing something like that. Something super expensive. You don't need a full stack there. You could do like Lowry, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton, something like that. That Rangers top line hasn't been good defensively. They haven't been good offensively. So I do like multiple Winnipeg lines here, but Winnipeg one, obviously my favorite. On the Rangers side, I'm going up against Hellebuck, really, puts a damper on wanting to back them. That and like Miller, Zibanejad, Cooley are creating 2.1 expected goals for in a 70-minute sample. They also took Trocheck off the top power play. So the Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere line only has Panarin on the top power play unit now. So it's just like you're going to the only real way to get against Winnipeg is on the power play, and that would take you to the Miller Zibanejad line, but they've been absolute poppycock at 5-on-5. So do you really want to stack Miller and Zibanejad for the power play on this slate? Probably not. I have no interest in the bottom six, so I'm pretty much out on the Rangers here.
I mean, I'm just out on the Rangers. Like this is a terrible matchup. Remember last year, Winnipeg went on that long streak where Hellebuck gave up 2 or fewer goals per game and then kind of fell apart down the stretch. Since the Four Nations break ended, the Winnipeg Jets are giving up the second fewest goals against per game. So or per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. So they haven't slipped really. This is still a really good defensive team. So I'm out on the Rangers. For me, this is a Winnipeg game. Ehlers, Perfidi, and Nemesnikov, they're one of those lines where they've been creating very well at 5-on-5. They just haven't been scoring a lot. Kind of reminds me of that New Jersey Hischer line that we talked about earlier, where honestly, if you go back to early December, so basically since American Thanksgiving, the Ehlers, Perfidi, and Nemesnikov line has been, quote, creating better quality shots than the top line. They're just not finishing. And I think that makes sense when you think, Perfidi hasn't really been a great finisher so far in his young career. Nemesnikov, certainly not. So they're one of those lines where they create enough offense where you're kind of waiting for them to break out. But honestly, I would probably just go to the top line here. Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, they've just been so good on the power play. And, the Rangers penalty kill has been getting better basically since Christmas. It's been better than it was in the first half of the season. But this power play has been good enough to kind of shred anybody. 20,200 is a pretty reasonable price. 8% ownership is a pretty reasonable ownership considering they're at home with a 3.4 total. I was looking at the Rangers' defensive numbers since Adam Fox got hurt. I don't think it would shock anybody to know that they've not been good. Bottom 10 expected goals against at 5-on-5, bottom 10 goals against at 5-on-5. They miss Adam Fox. They can't replace him. They can't even do one of those we'll replace him in the aggregate Moneyball type things. There's just nothing they can do about it. I think this is a great matchup for Winnipeg one. They are one of the over 20K lines that I would consider playing here tonight. So for me, this is a Winnipeg one game or bust.
Yeah. And Fox did skate today, but he's in non-contact. Still going to be a while for him. Washington Capitals with a 3.4 total heading into Anaheim. The Ducks have a 2.6 total. Washington going Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Alexei Protas, Connor McMichael. Ducks going Vetrano, Terry Strome, Zegras, Carlson, Killorn, Gauthier, McTavish, Colangelo. I don't know why Washington does this sometimes, where they just take Protas off the top line and then they try it out with Wilson and it doesn't work and then they move back. Strome, Ovechkin, Wilson, 85 minutes this season, 2.3 expected goals, 2.1 actual. The saving grace here is that they're fully correlated in a very good power play spot, 300. You can easily just go play Colorado for 600 more. For a couple $100 less, you go play Winnipeg. You know what I mean? If I'm playing Washington, it is some sort of power play stack. I just like this line just has not been good at 5-on-5. Like with Protas, they were, and for Dubois, Wilson, and McMichael together were really good. At some point, maybe they bring them back together. I don't know. I don't really love these 5-on-5 lines. I think you can one off Dubois, one off Ovechkin, something like that. I just don't know if I want to stack that top line for 21,300, even in this matchup. You know what I mean? They're fine. I just wish they were on different lines and Protas was up there. I'd be much more interested. But, I'm fine with the power play stack here. I just don't love it because they're not very good at 5-on-5. The Ducks side, Vetrano, Terry Strome, I think would be the line. Their prices come down. They're 16,700. They were like 18 and change not even a week ago. I don't love it in single entry, but in MME, I think that is perfectly fine. These Washington lines haven't been great defensively. Washington has kind of been sliding defensively since Logan Thompson started allowing goals. There was like a month stretch where he just didn't allow goals. So I don't mind Anaheim one here. I think a Carlson Zegras 2-man or something like that is fine. A McTavish Colangelo 2-man is fine. But, Washington power play is my favorite thing in this game. I just don't like these 5-on-5 configurations.
I always get scared when I don't have a ton of interest in Washington because we've been saying it all season, but I think two things are true of this Capitals team. One, not only are they a lot better than we thought they were going to be, and that they're a lot better than they were last year offensively, they're doing a lot of stuff under the hood that makes you a very, very good offensive team. Like they play off the rush, but they also play off the forecheck. Their defensemen get involved. High rate of zone entries, of controlled zone entries, like those types of things, like the things that we look at that can drive good offensive play. Washington does. They've also been getting pretty lucky. Like, don't forget, like that Ovechkin Protas Strome line up until Ovechkin's injury was shooting like 18%. It's like, again, we always say like 12% is pretty high. Like 18% is just ridiculous. And like you mentioned with Wilson there, they haven't been good. 53 shot attempts, 2.3 expected goals, 2.1 actual goals. And here's the thing is like Anaheim is a team that has been getting better as the season's gone on. They have an outside shot at the playoffs, like a very low probability of getting to the playoffs. But think that we're past the deadline and they're at least within reasonable striking distance should probably tell us a lot about how this team has played this season. Generally, I'd say earlier was on the goaltending, but lately, like over the last 20 games at 5-on-5, Anaheim's expected goals against 2.8, obviously not great. We just talked about the New York Rangers. They're at 2.7. You know what I mean? If you look at the goals against, like Anaheim's been a lot better because Dostal and Gibson up until he was hurt were really good. Again, that's just over the last 20 games, but I think it shows some improvement defensively. Like they're not a good defensive team, but they're not a doormat like the San Jose Sharks are either. So if you want me to pay $21,000 for a line, I'll just go play Winnipeg, who is at home and I think is as good of a matchup, honestly, as Washington is here tonight. So for that reason, I'd probably be more inclined to dip down to Washington 2, Dubois, Protas, McMichael, because they're 16,200. They're a little bit overpriced, I think, but they'll get decent minutes. That second line, at least they've been scoring now, shooting 21%. But they're, if they're shooting like 10.5%, they'd still be about league average, which is okay. I'm going to be honest, I'm not super excited about Washington here tonight. Again, if I'm paying over $20K for a line, I think I'd rather just go play Winnipeg. I think I'd rather go play Colorado. I think I'd rather go play Florida. That's just kind of the way it is. I'm honestly more in on the Anaheim side. I don't mind Vetrano, Terry Strome. The thing is like with Zegras back in the lineup, it's that thing where they're not getting that much ice time again. Like since Zegras came back, they're like 16 to 18 minutes. It's not 18 to 20 minutes. You know what I mean? That bothers me a little bit. think I'm more interested in the second and third lines as fillers for my primary stacks. Like Alex Killorn got moved to the top power play unit, and whatever we think about the Anaheim power play, getting top power play time anywhere is important. And at 3,700, it's hard to beat that. Leo Carlson been shooting the puck more over the last couple months. He's only 3,800. Trevor Zegras is probably going to play amongst the most ice time. Like 2 out of those 3 guys, or if you want to dip down to like a McTavish Gauthier or Colangelo Gauthier 2-man or something, I think that's fine. But, that Anaheim second line, 135 minutes since Zegras came back. Zegras, Carlson, Killorn, 68 shot attempts, 2.6 expected goals, 2.7 actual goals. That's better than any Washington line that the Caps are icing here tonight. And they're at home for 12,300. Now, I wouldn't probably outright stack them, but like again, like a cheap-ish 2-man to fit in with your expensive Florida, Colorado, whatever stacks. I think that's where I am. So I think I'm more in on the Anaheim depth than anything else in this game.
Yep. Montreal Canadiens with a 2.5 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 3 total. Looks like Line is out again, and it's going to be Josh Roy, I forget which one, on the second line with Newhook and Gallagher. The Canucks also have completely brand new lines at morning skate this morning. They're going O'Connor, Pettersson, Besser, DeBrusk, Chytil, Karamaki, Joshua, Beluga, Garland. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Newhook, Gallagher, Roy, Anderson, Dvorak, Pizzetta, I believe. Yes. Like, Quinn Hughes is still out for Vancouver. That kind of gives me interest here in Vancouver. Or it kind of makes me not too interested in Vancouver. The problem is it's a really good matchup. I don't know, man. Like Pettersson and Besser together, I don't know. It doesn't really give me too much interest. I think the line that I'd be interested in is Chytil, Karamaki, DeBrusk. Chytil and Karamaki have played, a little bit together, like 3 or 4 games together. They've been fine. They were good there with Drew O'Connor. I think they'll be fine there with DeBrusk. They're going to avoid that top line, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, Caulfield for the most part. After that, like with these lines, there's nothing there. So it would be Chytil, Karamaki, DeBrusk for me. If you want to go to the Pettersson line because you have Pettersson and Besser on the top power play unit, it's a good power play spot. Fine. Pettersson's having an awful season. So I'm probably just going to Chytil, Karamaki. On the Montreal side, I wonder with Line out if that top line is going to see a minutes bump.
They have been playing a little bit more. Like Caulfield, Suzuki, around 19 minutes, or Caulfield and Slavkovsky around 19 minutes, Suzuki around 21, 22.
Yeah, and with Newhook, Gallagher, Roy on the second line, they're not really going to be the second line, I don't think. Like, without Line there, the coach may play them 11, 12 minutes. You'll see Anderson, Dvorak, Pizzetta play 11, 12. I honestly think the Heineman line will be the second line by minutes allotment. But the top line does interest me at 17K. The Canucks are probably going to send out Bluger, Garland, Joshua against them. They've been good offensively. They haven't been ideal defensively. Lankinen's had a good season, but at 17K, I do like Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky there. They're going to get their minutes, like Cliffy said. So for 17K, they're probably my favorite line in this game, but you can't discount Van because it's a really good matchup. It's just like without Quinn Hughes, they're kind of bad.
I mean, kind of bad.
Really bad.
I think you're being a little bit generous there. I mean, over Vancouver's last 20 games, second lowest goals for, per minute in the league. Only Ottawa's been worse. Over Vancouver's last 20 games, second fewest goals for at all strengths, so including power play and penalty kill. The only team worse is the Flyers. You might chalk that up to a little bit of bad luck until you look at the fact that they're 27th by expected goals for per 60 minutes in that stretch. Obviously, a lot of that's without JT Miller because he was traded. A lot of that has been without Quinn Hughes because he's hurt. But JT Miller still traded. Quinn Hughes still hurt. So, like, how much interest can I really have in Vancouver here tonight? The interest I have in Vancouver is because they're cheap. You know what I mean? They're cheap and at home. I don't really have any interest in Elias Pettersson at 5,900. That's for sure. But like Connor Garland, 5,200, Jake DeBrusk, 4,700, Drew O'Connor, 3,600. Like those types of guys, I think are fine as one-offs. But this is not a good offensive team. And even if it is a good matchup against Montreal, don't get me wrong, at a certain point, a team is so bad offensively that it's never a good matchup for them. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, stacking Chicago on 11-game slate when they're at home to San Jose. It's like, well, you can do it, I guess, if you want to. It's probably not for me. I think I'm more in on the Montreal side. Montreal top line, since the Four Nations break, 2.7 expected goals, 3.6 actual, shooting 11%, which is like for a lot of spots would be high, but Caulfield and Suzuki have been shooting, I think it's 10.5% when they're on the ice together at 5-on-5 over the last 3 years. So like this is kind of just what they are. And again, getting a lot of ice time because, Doc out, Line out, they don't trust Pizzetta. They don't trust Owen Beck, who I think actually got sent down. They're certainly not going to trust Joshua Roy to step in and play 17 minutes or something like that. This line is going to get good ice time. What worries me is that Vancouver's penalty kill is really good. It is the one thing that they basically had, at least for like the last half of the season, very consistently, is a very good penalty kill. This is not a good power play matchup for Montreal. That's the one thing that's kind of holding me back. But positive leverage, 6% top two stack percentage for a line that is 17K is perfectly fine. Like a 6% top two stack percentage, I think is top 12 amongst all the lines here tonight. So I do like Montreal 1. I think Montreal, what we have as Montreal 4, like Armia, Heineman, Evans, is their second line. Like Armia was on the top power play unit. So he's going to play 15, 16 minutes. Jake Evans regularly plays 16 minutes because he kills penalties and they have him on with the empty net. And sometimes they'll throw him on like with the Suzuki line and stuff like that. So he'll play like 16 minutes. Like this is their second line now. So like if you need super cheap guys in this game, I would honestly go to like a two-man of Armia Evans or something like that. But it is Montreal 1 that I have the most interest in out of these two teams.
Yeah, I agree. New York Islanders with a 2.3 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 3.1. LA going Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere, Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Moore, Fogle, Deneau. Islanders going Horvat, Palmieri, Duclair, Lee, Holmstrom, Pajot. Like, the Islanders' top line is fully correlated here at 14,400, 1.8% top two stack, 2.5% projected ownership. I don't love the Islanders here. They have a 2.3 road total. It's an 11-game slate. But they are fully correlated. They've been pretty good together. They're shooting a very low percentage, but they are only 14-4. They play decently good minutes. The Kings haven't been as good defensively as they've been earlier in the year. I'm definitely not running out to play them, but I think, in your MME mix, I would certainly get to a little bit of this top line at 14-4. Just too cheap, and the ownership is good. The Islanders' second line doesn't interest me too much. They're 11-8. You can throw them in the basket of MME filler lines. This is a Kings game for me, though. And it just kind of depends what you want to do because Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Kempe fully correlated. Now, the Islanders don't have a good penalty kill at all. It's 30th in the league, I believe. The problem is they just don't take a ton of penalties. Kings power play also is atrocious. Maybe it gets better with Kuzmenko there. So for that reason, I'll go back to Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere at 16-4. If you want to go to Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, I think that's perfectly fine. They've looked actually pretty good in their 2 games together. I also think more Fogle Deneau at 13.6 is a filler line that I will throw into the basket. 3.4 expected goals, 3.7 actual in 180 minutes this season, fully correlated on the second unit. The bottom six for the Islanders are absolutely atrocious. So I really don't mind more Fogle Deneau as a filler, but I think it's the Fiala line that I like the best.
Yeah, I mean, you went a lot longer than the Islanders than I will. I am not playing the New York Islanders here tonight. On the Los Angeles side, it's interesting that the Kopitar-Kempe line had been really bad for like a month and a half, and then we're pretty good in both games with Kuzmenko there. I honestly, I got to think it's small sample noise, but I guess we'll find out over the next couple of weeks. That line is perfectly correlated. That's a $16,200 line that's perfectly correlated at home against a bad penalty kill. I will say the Islanders penalty kill has gotten better over the last 5 weeks, but it's all save percentage. Yeah, like I think it's 895 save percentage, like the fifth highest in the league or something like that. If there was anywhere close to league average, this team would be getting bombed out on the penalty kill again. So like, it is not a good penalty kill. Los Angeles isn't drawing a ton of power play opportunities, so that's the other problem. Is like, not only are they generally not having a good power play, but they don't draw that many opportunities. All that said, if they can get opportunities, it is a good matchup for them. I have no problem going to Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar. I would much rather play them than anything on the Islander side. But for me, this game's about Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere. Because the Kings don't draw a ton of power play opportunities, I'm more focused on the 5-on-5 play. And that line, 74 shot attempts, 3.1 goals per 60 minutes since the Four Nations break. They're not getting a ton of ice time anymore, but that's also priced in. Like, this line was over 20K at certain points in recent history. So 16,400 is very reasonable. Fiala, Byfield, and Laferriere have been really good. I'm not worried about any of the matchups in particular on the Islander side. Byfield's even shooting the puck a bit more. 24 shots in his last 10 games. Like, that was a big problem for him in DFS this season, is that he just was not shooting the puck. Now, 2.4 shots per game isn't great, but it's certainly a lot better than what he was doing for most of the year. So, considering how good Fiala has been, Laferriere has been shooting the puck a lot lately, even though he lost his top power play role. Byfield's been shooting more. I really like Kings 1 here. They're my favorite line in this game. But I think, considering Kempe, Kuzmenko, and Kopitar are perfectly correlated, you probably should consider them as well.
Yeah. Am I muted? Nope. I'm good. Nashville Predators with a 3.3 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.7. This is the festival of fuckery of the night. Can't believe this is a late night hammer. This is almost worse than Islander Sharks from the other night. Nashville going Forsberg, Marchessault, Sissons, Stamkos, O'Reilly, Evangelista. I will mention Svechkov, Rana, Cole Smith at 10-2. San Jose going to Foley, Eklund, Wenberg, Macklin, Celebrini, Will Smith, Clint Costin. I'll start on the Sharks side since there's an absolute wild amount of ownership here. Celebrini, Smith, Costin, 14,400, 5.6% top two stacks, 17.6% projected ownership. Toffoli, Eklund, Wenberg, 14K, 4.5% top two stack, 14.9% projected ownership. I don't want to play the Sharks here, but it's kind of similar to how it was with the Islanders the other night. Like, Nashville is one of the worst teams in the league. It's just like, if Wallman was there at this ownership, I'd be a lot happier about playing them. Without Wallman, the expected goals for Celebrini goes way down. Same for the second line. It's just, this Nashville team is bad. I just don't want to play 18% Klim Kostin. Like, Celebrini and Will Smith together this year haven't been great. 2.3 expected goals for in almost 200 minutes. I think the line I would go to is Wenberg, Eklund, Toffoli. They're fully correlated. 15% is kind of high. Just like, if you had to play Sharks here, I think I would stack that line. The problem is It's like, why am I stacking the Sharks without Macklin Celebrini? Played 20 minutes the other night against the Islanders. He had 10 shots on goal and 2 assists. He's just taking the reins away from Wallman now that he's gone and just carrying the team. His back probably really hurts. I don't know, man. Like, I'm really mum on the Sharks here. If Wallman was here, I would say the ownership's fine. Without Wallman, I know Nashville sucks, but like, I just don't think I can full stack. I think like a Celebrini one-off is fine. A Toffoli one-off is fine. I just don't love the Sharks here. For the same sentiment, I don't really love full stacking Nashville here. Forsberg, Marchessault, Sissons, basically 20K coming in at 10%. They haven't been good in their 3 games. The other game, like the last game, they went to overtime with Chicago. Like Stamkos, he had a hat the other night. Like that line's been pretty decent in the 43-minute sample. But like outside of the overtime game in Chicago, O'Reilly and Stamkos have been playing like 15, 16 minutes. Evangelista was playing like 14, 13 minutes. And I really want to fade Nashville here, but I hear Cliffy from the other night just absolutely throwing a promo on how bad the Sharks are. So you have to consider Nashville here. I don't think I'm going to be full stacking anything. I think I'm more in on one-offs here, like a one-off Forsberg, a one-off Stamkos, some sort of power play stack. I don't particularly love stacking these lines. I think if I was going to stack anything, I would go to the O'Reilly Stamkos line, leave off Evangelista, and add in like Brady Shea or Philip Forsberg or something like that. But at that point, it just gets so expensive. It's like, do I want to power play stack the Preds here? Do I want to power play stack the Avs? You know what I mean? So those are questions you're going to have to answer. I don't particularly love Nashville here, but again, the Sharks might be the worst team in the NHL since the 2015 Buffalo Sabres. So you got to consider Nashville here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a good power play matchup for Nashville right now. I should say that without Roman Josi on the power play, the Nashville top power play unit shooting 6%. They've still been generating roughly the same quality shots and same amount of shots without Josi. So, like, I got to think it's just kind of small sample noise more than too much of a structural change. And San Jose has been taking a lot of penalties. They've taken the most penalties per game of any team over the last 5 weeks. So 7 weeks, including the Four Nations Cup. They've been taking a ton of penalties. In Nashville, while they don't draw a ton of power plays, they're about league average in that sense. So this is a pretty good power play matchup for Nashville. So if I do play the Preds here tonight, this is a case where I focus on the 4 power play guys. I focus on Forsberg, Stamkos, O'Reilly, and Marchessault. Now, Stamkos has actually played reasonably well with Luke Evangelista, which kind of surprised me, but 61 shot attempts, 3.4 goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, shooting 9.7%. So I think that Stamkos, O'Reilly, Evangelista line would be at least good enough to carry play against the Sharks. So like Forsberg, O'Reilly, Stamkos, that's where I am on Nashville. I'd be focusing on the power play guys. Kind of the same thing on San Jose, because for all the penalties that San Jose has taken, Nashville is 5th by time shorthanded per game over the last 5 weeks. 5th, tied for 4th over the last 10 weeks. So Nashville is taking a lot of penalties as well. Their penalty kill is not very good. I would definitely be focusing on the San Jose power play guys: Toffoli, Eklund, Wenberg, Smith, Celebrini. I was telling you earlier today, by point per dollar, the top 2 Nashville lines are 2 of the 4 best values on the board here tonight. It shows in the ownership. That's why they have so much ownership.
The Sharks, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, the Sharks, sorry. So, I don't know exactly what approach I'd want to take with San Jose, but I think I would focus around Celebrini and Smith. The reason is Smith and Clayton Costin have actually played a decent amount together this season, like about 7 games worth of ice time. And they've been good together. 71 shot attempts, 2.9 expected goals for per 60. So obviously I think they can keep that up with Celebrini there. I don't have as much faith in the Wenberg to Foley line. So for me, it'd be Celebrini, Smith, Toffoli, Celebrini, Smith, Eklund, like something like that is where I am. So I think it's just power play stacking, probably 2 or 3 guys on either side, and that's where I am in this game.
Yeah. This is a good game if you play it or don't, or if you fade it or play it, just go to bed. Let's talk about defensemen at the top of the board. There's 2 guys above 7K. It's Cale Makar and Zach Werenski. There are a couple of guys above 6K. It's Morrissey, Sanderson, Chychrun, Carlson, Pietrangelo. Obviously, Werenski, Makar, 1-2. For me, it's a good power play spot for Makar. It's a not the best matchup for Werenski, but he is a very big, large key to that team, and he plays a ton. I like Morrissey here for the matchup. Sanderson's fine, but I'd rather play Morrissey. The Washington guys are fine. I don't particularly love the top range outside of Werenski, Makar, and Morrissey.
Yeah. Like at the top, Werenski has the highest projection of any defenseman over 6K here tonight. He also has the highest point per dollar value. So I think Werenski does make the best expensive play. I think Makar is interesting because obviously a lot of people would have gotten burned on by him last night, and it's a really good power play spot here for Colorado. So like even if Colorado doesn't pile in the goals, like their power play can go 2 for 3. Makar gets a goal and assist, like a few shots, like that type of thing. So I do think that there's merit to playing either. I would obviously lean Werenski, but those are the 2 expensive guys I like. I don't mind Jacob Chychrun either, just because he shoots so much. Those are the 3 expensive guys I would consider in that order: Werenski, then Makar, then Chychrun. In the mid-price range, like Luke Hughes running the power play for New Jersey, he's certainly fine. Like Seth Jones is going to be running the Florida power play without Aaron Ekblad. I imagine he'll probably get a small bump in minutes as well. He's definitely somebody to consider. Jake Middleton for Minnesota. He's in a prime spot to kind of rack up the blocks, and hopefully some shots and points. At 4K, he's going to play a ton of minutes and loves to block shots, so he's all right. Devin Taves, if you don't want to pay up for Makar, I think going down to Taves is fine. But he's not my favorite, like around that price range. Taves is 4,900. Like Jackson Lacombe from Anaheim, he's only $100 more expensive. I'd rather play Lacombe here tonight. Noah Hannafin for Vegas is in a really good power play matchup. He's 5,700. It's a little expensive because he's not like a peripheral merchant, but it's a really good matchup here for Vegas. For the cheaper guys, like Dylan Sandberg is projecting extremely well for Winnipeg. Nick Blankenburg is interesting because he got some power play time for Nashville in their last game. I don't know if that lasts. Like they might probably just go right back to Brady Shea, but Blankenburg's been getting decent ice time anyway. Zach Jones is on the top power play for the Rangers. Radko Gudas is projecting well. Adam Pelech for the Islanders is projecting well. If you need a punt, like Braden Schneider for the Rangers is projecting well for his price. Nico Mikkola, certainly from Florida. I hate to say it, but Joel Edmondson, say what you want about the guy. They're giving him ice time. So, sub 3K, I think he's fine. Nick Jensen from Ottawa. He was in the lineup last night, assuming he's back in the lineup tonight. He got almost 20 minutes. He's fine for under 3K, but under 3K, I think it's like Schneider, Mikkola, probably Edmondson would be the 3 I would consider.
Yep. Let's talk about goalies here. In the top range, I mean, there's Thompson, there's Saros, there's Markstrom, there's Bob, there's Samsonov, and there's Blackwood and Lankinen. I don't particularly love any of them. I think Blackwood would be my favorite at 8K, but Connor Hellebuck is sitting right there at 7,900. So Hellebuck, if you're spending up, don't mind Kemper, but he's the same price as Hellebuck. So Hellebuck for me. Yeah, I guess Bob is fine. Thompson's fine, but I'd prefer Blackwood, Hellebuck. In the mid-price range, I like Vasilevsky here at 7,600. I think Sorokin is interesting if he starts at 7,500. You have Igor at 7,500. He's just a pure GPP play. He has high upside, very low ceiling, or very low floor, high ceiling. Montembeault at 7,400. Vancouver is just a low-scoring team. And then if you need to spend all the way down, I think whomever starts for Anaheim, Dostal at 6,900, Gibson at 6,700 are fine.
Yeah, the top three projected goalies here tonight are Bobrovsky, Kemper, and Hellebuck. They're also the top three by point per dollar value. I think they're the top three on the board here tonight. I would be most interested in playing Kemper, but I think, obviously playing Connor Hellebuck, I think is perfectly fine. Although our Discord loves to call him Hella Sucks, because it does seem whenever we do play him,
or smelly butt.
Yeah, it's one of those like 3 goals against on 25 shots, and he'll still get the win or something like that. But Kemper, Hellebuck, Bobrovsky. For cheaper guys, like I think Vasilevsky obviously makes a lot of sense. Anytime a goalie goes into Carolina, we do have interest in them. Jeremy Swayman at 7,200 is probably as low I would go. Like Elvis Merzlikins is interesting to me just because he's been really good. Like he's been really good basically since like Christmas. And, New Jersey doesn't have Jack Hughes or Dougie Hamilton. So Merzlikins at 7,100, I guess, is okay. But for me, it'd likely be between Vasilevsky or Swayman. Whoever starts for Ottawa would be kind of interesting if it does end up being Forsberg. But
it is Forsberg.
Yeah. Here's the thing is like, I don't think they call up a goalie just for no reason. So like Forsberg is supposed to start, but keep an eye on that because Merrilainen is 6,500 just in case there's some switch at warmups. So just keep an eye on that.
And I arguably think Merrilainen's better than Anton Forsberg, but that's just me. Deck chairs on the Titanic, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. I don't know if we'll be back tomorrow. It's a 4-game slate. We have to see what the GPPs are. We for sure will be back Thursday and Saturday. Wednesday and Friday are question marks. Pick.
I like the line here tonight. He's had a really good season so far. I'm going with Mark Scheifele.
Marco Scheifele. Kind of going off the board for me. Like off the board for me is kind of on the board, but it's still kind of interesting. I'm going Brandon Hagel.
No, I like that. That is kind of different, but I do like it.
So we possibly will see you tomorrow. We'll see what the GPP is looking like. If not, we'll see you on Thursday. If you are in the 555 tonight, good luck. Hopefully someone we know, me or you or one of our listeners, takes it down. But good luck, everybody, tonight. Bacon's wishing you good luck, and we'll see you either tomorrow or Thursday.
Good luck tonight, everybody.